This is one of those questions that sounds almost too obvious to ask until you actually start digging into the specifics. And then it turns into one of the most genuinely fascinating rabbit holes in animal behavior. Imagine a chimpanzee in a sanctuary, watching intently as its favored keeper offers a luscious banana to another chimp. The intensity in those eyes is undeniable. And it involves a number that sounds made up, 93%. Do animals genuinely get jealous like humans do? And if so, why does this happen so consistently across different species? The first concept to dive into is something called resource guarding, sometimes scientifically referred to as possessive aggression. The core idea here is that animals are often hardwired to protect things they see as valuable: food, mates, territory. In animal behavior studies, this is particularly evident in dogs. A study found that dogs displayed jealousy-like behavior when their owners interacted with a fake dog. The key was not just the presence of another dog, but the owner's attention being redirected. Another great example comes from birds, specifically mated pairs of parakeets. When one parakeet in a bonded pair begins to show interest in another bird, the original mate will often act out, singing louder or aggressively pushing its partner away. But here's the thing. Not all animals respond this way. Cats, for instance, show much lower levels of this possessive aggression, leading some researchers to wonder if jealousy is more deeply tied to social bonding and pack behavior. This sounds like it completely contradicts everything we just said. Cats are social too, right? The resolution lies in understanding that jealousy, as we see it, may require a certain level of cognitive complexity tied to social hierarchy. Something more pronounced in species like dogs or even birds with strong social structures. So, how does this resource guarding tie back to the broader question of jealousy? Why do these animals even get emotionally triggered by their humans' interactions with others in the first place? A second concept is social comparison, sometimes called comparative social cognition. This is where animals, much like humans, seem to weigh their social standing against others. Take, for example, a study on capuchin monkeys. Researchers found that these monkeys would actually reject a reward if they saw another monkey receiving a better one for the same task. That's right, they preferred no reward over what they perceived as unfair treatment. It's a behavior remarkably similar to human notions of fairness and equality. Then there are crows, well known for their intelligence. In controlled settings, crows have been observed to refuse cooperation if they perceive inequity. Say, one crow getting more food for less effort. Not all social animals exhibit this behavior. Some studies suggest ravens don't seem to care as much when it comes to unequal rewards, unless the inequality is extreme. This apparent contradiction can be resolved by looking at the underlying social structures and natural history of these animals. Ravens often have more fluid social groups compared to the more stable hierarchies of capuchins or crows. So, this social comparison concept tells us that jealousy might be linked to how keenly an animal tracks its social position. But how do they even detect such disparities? The third concept is emotional contagion, sometimes termed empathetic mimicry. This is the ability to pick up on and mirror the emotions of others, a skill that can be surprisingly advanced in the animal kingdom. One of the most striking examples comes from studies on elephants. When an elephant in distress trumpets, others will come over, touch it with their trunks, and often start trumpeting in a similar distressed manner. Researchers measured that this instinctive reaction happens within just a few seconds, highlighting a deeply empathetic response. Similarly, rats have shown signs of emotional contagion. In laboratory settings, if one rat is stressed, others nearby can pick up on the emotional cues and begin to exhibit stress behaviors themselves, such as increased grooming or agitation. However, this doesn't happen universally across all species. Consider reptiles, which show minimal signs of emotional contagion. Why? Likely due to their solitary nature and evolutionary paths that didn't necessitate this kind of social bonding. Looking deeper at how emotional contagion operates reveals that animals might be jealous because they are so attuned to the emotional states of those around them. It's like an emotional radar that picks up on shifts in attention or affection. But what about the animals that do not react this way? The final concept we'll explore is cognitive bias, a term researchers use to describe how emotions can shape perception and decision-making. It's a fascinating area where animal psychology overlaps with ours. Take dogs again. When they perceive another dog as receiving more attention or treats, they may interpret this as a negative event, which biases their subsequent interactions with both the owner and the other dog. Some surveys suggest that many dog owners report jealousy-like behaviors when a new pet was introduced, including sulking or avoidance. Now consider guinea pigs, which display much less of this cognitive bias. Even when experiments give preferential treatment to one over another, the overlooked guinea pigs often don't change their behavior toward the more favored pig. This is where context plays a massive role. Guinea pigs, by their nature, rely less on human interactions, and their evolutionary path has not conditioned them to respond with jealousy in the same way. The cognitive bias concept suggests that many animals interpret situations through an emotional lens shaped by their interactions and experiences, framing perceived inequities as personal slights. But how does this cognitive bias shape the bigger picture of animal jealousy? Now let's introduce reciprocal sensitivity, a concept that involves an awareness of mutual relationships and their inherent balance. This is where animals gauge the give and take in their interactions, weighing their own actions against the reactions of others in their social circles. Dolphins offer a fascinating case study here. Researchers observed that dolphins were more likely to cooperate with those who had previously collaborated with them, showing a keen sense of reciprocity that involved remembering past interactions and adjusting their future behavior accordingly. On the other hand, meerkats exhibit another form of reciprocal sensitivity. Studies indicate that meerkats are more likely to aid those who have groomed them recently, establishing a direct link between grooming and cooperative behavior. However, this isn't a universal rule for all animals. Take the solitary leopard, which rarely demonstrates such sensitivity due to its largely independent lifestyle that doesn't necessitate reciprocal relationships. The complexity of reciprocal sensitivity becomes evident when considering species with varying social structures. In animals like dolphins and meerkats, which live in highly cooperative groups, the balance of give and take informs social bonds and perhaps even jealousy. Is it possible that this sensitivity to reciprocity might add a layer to the jealousy we observe in some animals? How do these layers interact with our broader understanding of jealousy in the animal kingdom? Returning to our opening scene with the watchful chimpanzee, we see that the 93% figure is not a well-documented statistic in these intelligent creatures. It's clear that while jealousy might seem like a strictly human emotion, it's deeply rooted in the animal kingdom's social and emotional machinery. Each mechanism we've explored adds another layer to our understanding, from resource guarding and social comparison to emotional contagion and cognitive bias. So next time you see an animal displaying what looks like jealousy, remember the complex interplay of instincts and emotions at work. What seems like a simple outburst may actually be a sophisticated response to their environment, honed over millennia. And that's where the real wonder lies, isn't it?